Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience. One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss. And she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt. Yeah.
It's been a minute since the last time we were able to, both of us sit down and record a podcast.
I know, and I did get comments from people. We were getting people asking, "Hello, anybody home? You still there?
Yeah. Well,
did you quit doing it? No, we didn't quit doing it. I'm sorry.
No, but it is spring in the mountains here in Idaho, and everything is kicking off and getting going, and it's just been a little bit crazy. So.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing. That's what we hope. It's kind of what pays the bills. So we need to move some ICF and build some things and draw plans and all the different stuff that actually makes us money. So we just got, and we were traveling. We've been a bunch of different places. That's
for a different podcast. Some of the travel.
Yeah,
it wasn't
crazy.
Business. It was.
Well, yeah, we've had business stuff too. We've been out and about and all over the place. So this is episode 40. What do we say? Episode 49. God, getting close to 50.
Yeah. I
think that's actually one away from 50. If my math is correct. So we're operating remotely. Also, we're not in the regular Build with ICF studio. We are down at our Airbnb. We've got a new podcast dog. I'll have to post a picture of Gordon, the new podcast dog.
Yeah.
He's down laying right next to the soundboard on the couch here. So we're in a more comfortable scenario, just sitting back on the couch talking today. But it's a great way to do listener questions. We've had, due to the fact that we've had so much time off here, we've had a lot of listener questions pile up. So wanting to get there and get some of these questions answered for our listeners. So
all right, well, you've got the list in front of you, so I've
got all the power right here. So
yes, you do.
I'm going to start out. I'm going to shout out a few people too where these questions came from for this. So Fabian, this is one of our listeners who reached out and got this question going, and funny how it gets going, and then I get 3 or 4 more of the same question right behind it. So figured it needed to be discussed on the podcast here. So he was asking about becoming an installer in his area, becoming an ICF contractor. I think that we're hearing, due to the excitement of ICF, everybody kind of getting involved in it, and it's ramping up. Obviously, we've been in a long time, but it's just like all these people coming to it that are new to it, and they're seeing the opportunity, and they're wanting to know how do we get involved? How do we get a piece of this?
And you're seeing codes change. You're seeing natural disasters. You're seeing all this stuff happening, and wondering how can I get into this?
Yeah, how do you get involved? How do you benefit from it? From a business standpoint to just how do you help your community? How do you build better products and put better stuff out there? So, there's obviously a lot of things on here. We a lot of this we've brushed over, in different episodes. When we had Alfonso on, we talked about education classes and stuff. But and I did respond to Fabian on this, and we were talking about just reaching out and trying to find with your local, find out who your local distributors are, reach out to them and ask them if they've got any training classes coming up. There's a lot of online training that's available, very valuable. It's definitely take every online training class you can. I even suggest
the different brands too.
Yep. I even suggest different brands. I say, I try to take I've been doing this a long time. I've put my hands on almost every block out there, and I still, if I have the time or if I can catch it on a later recording, I still sign up for all of these classes. And I'm talking even the 101 classes. If I see them advertised, I will log in, check in on them, just because you just never know. There's always new things. I just had a conversation with a contractor who's building an ICF house with us right now that we supplied. And I trained him originally 20 years ago, and he's still doing it. And we talked about the difference of when I trained 20 years ago, we used to do staggered seams. Now we do a standing seam pretty much universally. I mean, I know that in him and I kind of went back and forth, and I'm like, dude, he's like, well, I like the staggered seam. Okay, do whatever you want. I get it. Like there's there's pros and cons to both. So I mean, it's just interesting by watching. No matter how long you've been doing this, if you watch different videos and different things, you're going to see, 10 videos, you probably see 10 different ways to do it. So that's where you start at, and then you also want to ask those same distributors and suppliers if they have any in-person training coming up. A lot of them are doing it spring. Everybody's getting into this is kind of the boom time. Yeah, it's getting a little crazy, but a lot of companies, this is when they like to do a training course or something.
Yeah, because for us, we do a lot of trainings this time of year and going through the summer, because then we can actually take you out to a job site.
Right. Yeah. So there's benefits. Like we'll do some in the winter because it's a slow time, and that's when you kind of get people to show up because they're not on a job site. But then there's also benefits to, like, we've got multiple build jobs going right now that people could actually come and get onto, which transitions into the next statement, which I would say is ask that person or get information and try to find a build local in your area and see if you can volunteer some free time. Don't go in there asking them for $50 an hour and for your labor, because you don't know what you're doing. You're actually going to probably slow them down, get in their way a little bit. So go in there with some free labor and say, hey man, I just want to come get my hands on some stuff. I'll try, I'll stay out of your way. I just want to be a help. You're going to pick up so much more stuff putting your hands on that block. You're going to feel like an expert. Literally in hours, you start to feel like you know what you're doing, and by the end of the day, you kind of feel like an expert. So that would be my best suggestion to everybody that's looking to get into this. And again, feel free to reach out to us, and if I can connect you with people in different parts of the country that might be able to do this, I'm happy to do that. There's different Facebook groups and stuff that you could obviously post on and see if anybody's got something going locally in your area that you can do to get on, either whether it be a training or just a job site. So lots of opportunity, and I welcome, please, we need more. Struggling to put some people with installers right now on some jobs. I mean, I've made multiple calls and everybody's booked up. So two things, that's inconvenient for trying to sell stuff if we don't have guys to install it, but two, that should be a big red flag that there's a business opportunity there. There's money to be made as an installer and an ICF contractor. So we find that a lot of people, their holdback is they say, I really want to work with ICF, but I don't know anything about it and I don't have any subs that do. And so, usually that's where I'm like, hey, let me try to find some guys for you. Let me put somebody in there. And so we try to do that. And then the other thing is, I'll plug myself a little bit. I do consult. So we come out. If you've got a crew and you just don't know how to do it, but you got the guys that want to learn how to do it, then for considerably less than what's going to cost you to hire an installer, you can bring your own crew, bring me out, and I can do an on job site training with you guys and your crew. So feel free to reach out and DM us about that or shoot me an email if that's something that interests you as well. Because what I find is when guys do that and they do it for their own project, then all of a sudden they go, well, I'm going to actually kind of put it out there for other contractors that maybe my guys can install. So we work with multiple install crews that are installers for other builders that we, quote unquote compete with, but we're also friends with. So,
well, and I was going to say, you've been in this a lot longer than I have, but coming from, as a GC, when I found ICF blocks and decided to switch my project over to it, the first thing I had to do was go meet with my draftsman at the time and get my plans converted. Because, your exterior wall thickness is going to be different. Sometimes your plans work great. Sometimes there's some adjustments that have to be made. So you want to make sure that, if you are a general contractor already, you have some plans that you're looking at doing. If we're just doing a basement and you want to do the basement out of it, that's probably going to be pretty easy just to switch that over without having to, adjust anything, make any adjustments. But if you're going, above grade all the way to the truss, you're going to need to look at it. And we review plans I just reviewed some last week for a guy that his plans, he had them converted by his original draftsman that drew them as a stick frame. And it was cheaper for him to go back to that person that drew them originally, have them converted, and then he just had us, do a little consulting time and review and make sure everything was good. So you want to do that. It's not a difficult thing to do. I guess it's time consuming. It can be if you don't understand how ICFs go together and all that kind of stuff. So, we do look at that and overlook people's, double check people's plans if needed, if they're converting a stick frame plan to an ICF plan.
Right. which we'll talk about a little bit later, and another
Oh.
question that came up. So
Okay.
you're jumping ahead a little
I
bit.
don't even know what the questions are, so
I know.
can't jump
I was
ahead.
going to have you talk on this in a different question, so we'll
Okay.
cliffhanger that because I'm going to put it at the end because I know that we're going to get a little off track on some of these questions that are coming in. So also need to give a shout out to Tim Hall with Concrete Construction Supply.
Oh, okay.
Because he's trying to call me and I'm not answering. So I had to text him, hey, man, I'm recording a podcast. And he said, oh, well, give me a shout out. So
Okay.
there's your shout out, Tim. Best concrete sales guy I've ever met in my life right there.
He doesn't sell concrete.
Well, concrete supplies and stuff.
Concrete construction supplies. There you
Construction
go.
supply, yeah.
Yeah.
But just a great salesman. How about
Yes.
that?
Okay, there you go.
I'll just
Okay.
give him kudos. Great salesman.
Okay.
Not a very good golfer, but good salesman.
He has lots of questions, so
does.
we're going to...
Anyway, sorry, Tim. Okay, enough about Tim. So next question going on is, so I've actually got to go back and forth with Ken quite a bit on YouTube. We recently figured out how to launch our audio podcast on YouTube. So if anybody's listening out there, if YouTube works better for you and you want to throw YouTube on, we are out on all the episodes are out on YouTube. I thought I was on YouTube Music, and apparently I wasn't. So anyways, my bad. But there I know we're on there, and it's prompted some really good questions, and we're getting some following there. So Ken has had some really good questions that I was like, yep, we need to kind of discuss this because it does come up with multiple people. One of them was, he was asking about the differences in thicknesses of block and clarifying, does it matter what size of thickness you're using on different things and stuff like that. So kind of the general consensus is, and there's always a one-off here that, somewhere in, BFE and they can do different things. But I'm going to tell you what I have seen over the years in different states and different territories and different things that we
The
do.
way to preface this is in my experience.
In my experience, I am not an engineer, as I say on this place all the time, but basically is usually they figure below grade is going to be a minimum of 8 inches. So if it's a below grade living space, being a basement or something like that, and they're going to require it to be a minimum of 8 inches. I have seen, 10 and 12 in certain situations where, for different reasons, seismic or whatever it is. And then also, and that's for no matter how many stories it is, if it's got below grade living space, they're usually going to require you to have 8 or better. The above grade part is or even if it's just a crawl space under a 2-story or larger, then they usually will require an 8-inch or larger stem wall as well. If it's single story with a non-living space under it, meaning it's a crawl or a slab, then primarily that's going to be a 6-inch block. And yes, I've got guys, there's a guy working up today that I was on the job site yesterday. He prefers 8-inch block totally because he likes just like having that thicker block. That's fine. 6-inch gives you a little bit of savings, not usually in the block too much because usually a 6 and 8-inch block are $1 a piece difference. I mean, they're not a huge difference, but where you're cutting out is you're cutting out 2 inches of, you're cutting out 25% of the concrete. So when concrete's expensive and things like that, then it cuts out that concrete. The gain of what you gain going from a 6-inch core to an 8-inch core energy efficiency wise is not huge because of the thermal mass issue of it. Yes, when you're adding inches of insulation, it multiplies very quickly, but with inches of concrete, it hits its minimum at about 4 to 5 inches, and then about 6 inches, it kind of levels out. And then after that, you're not gaining a ton due to the thermal mass, not in the northern hemisphere. And when, the sun up and down in 12 hours, whatever, like the way it works just scientifically, you're not gaining a huge amount of gain on that thicker concrete. So usually we try to convince people to go, 6-inch, anything above grade 6-inch. If it is multi-story, you will see where they'll usually go to a bigger, they'll start with 10, they'll go to 8, they'll go to 6 or whatever, and they'll transition every few floors or whatever. But really easy to transition to. People always say, well, you do with that 2 inches. We usually transition it right at the floor. So like right at the floor, you're going to transition your joists even with the top of the 8-inch block. And then you're going to run your OSB or, 1.125 OSB or whatever, or 7/8 OSB over the top of the lip, and then it will cover that little lip of foam for 2 inches. So it's pretty plain and simple. 4-inch, we get a lot of like, hey, can I use 4-inch? And that's a big question everybody wants to steal because again, saving the concrete a little bit smaller. In my personal experience, I mentioned I'm not an engineer or anything, or a doctor for that matter, but I have had a hard time keeping that stuff straight. Like a 4-inch doesn't sound like a big, 2-inch difference between 6-inch and 4-inch, but it's just a little squirrelier. It's a little harder to keep. You got to tighten up your alignment system a little bit because it just kind of wants to move a little bit more. It's just doesn't have as sturdy a base. It's like having your legs really spread out and someone trying to push you over, putting your legs shoulder length apart and push you over, and then putting your feet together and then have someone push you over. It's just not as sturdy. So I don't tend to use it in large quantities, but I do think there's a really good value in using that for dividing walls between living spaces and stuff and bedrooms, to where you're not hearing, say, the living room to the master bedroom or something like that. 4-inch can be really used for that. Or safe rooms. We get people who want to do like a safe room, keep, valuables in or whatever, like their gun safe room or something like that. Then they'll enclose an area inside of a larger ICF wall, usually for something like that.
Well, and I haven't looked recently, but I know when I originally started in 16, 17 with ICF, 4-inch block was special order from most.
Yeah, it doesn't move very much. I mean, it's very rare.
Versus 6 and 8 is most common.
Yeah.
So,
it's usually just in my experience, it's been like you'll find pockets of people that, one or two contractors that really like to use it for dividing walls, and they sell a bunch of it there. But it's pretty specialized. Yeah, if you walk into any given ICF manufacturing facility, they're probably not going to be running 4-inch. It's usually kind of on a very rare situation, but something that most everyone makes though. So I mean, every manufacturer you work with, pretty much all of them are going to make a 4-inch block. So it's available, and like I said, and up to the 12-inch block in some cases. I know, 6 and 8 is the bread and butter, obviously, and then most everybody makes a 10, and then some people make up to a 12, and then there's actually some companies that you can get an extended web in there and you can actually make them even wider, and people use those for footings and stuff like that. So that kind of hopefully answers that question for you guys on difference and what size you use. The other question that Ken had that was really good was, we've had waterproofing, Hulk waterproofing on here, and we've had our polyurethane guys on here, and everybody asks, like, okay, well, so a polyurethane block is going to be, more waterproof. So do you need to have waterproofing? Is it redundant to put waterproofing on a polyurethane block versus like where with a EPS block is going to be a little bit, a polystyrene block will be a little bit different. So yes, no, you still want to waterproof any block system you're using. You're still going to waterproof it. Specifically the Hulk system, the reason I think it would work better is because you still need to cover that space between the top of the grade, where the grade is and where the siding or whatever's going to start. You don't want that exposed ICF block there. So you're still going to run that, concrete gray Hulk system over it, and it's going to cover that, and it's going to keep it from being, because I mean, polyurethane block is harder, but it's still not impact resistant, still going to dent, still going to break. So you still want to have something that's where the Hulk comes in on that, or whatever you're using, peel and stick, temple board, whatever you're, rubber wall, whatever you're using, but yeah, you still want to do that. The other big thing is you're really trying to seal the big scary point of where the water comes through is usually at the bottom of the ICF wall, where it makes contact with the cold joint of the footing. So when you're pouring concrete onto another piece of existing concrete, that's going to create a cold joint no matter what you do. So right there is where usually the water can find its way through. So the waterproofing, no matter what the material is or makeup of the ICF is, it still should have a waterproofing system of some kind on it. And so I think that's answered that question.
I don't have anything else to add to that.
Nothing?
No.
I win that one?
You win.
All right, perfect. You guys heard it. So here's where I think we're going to get into this. This could be a little bit longer discussion because I think it's just going a little bit deeper. We're going to reiterate some stuff that we actually had already talked about, and some things we had Vitaly, I think hopefully I'm saying that right. Anyways, Vitaly, one of our listeners. Shout out Vitaly for a question asking us to talk a little more in depth about cost saving suggestions for DIY customers.
Yeah.
So
this is good because there's conversation today on one of the Facebook groups.
Right. It was, heated conversation on the Facebook group, which is a fairly normal thing, I feel like. But I think first and foremost, your biggest savings is the fact that it is DIY. You are doing it yourself.
It can,
okay.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. if done correctly. I know this is a hot button for people too. I've had guys reach out to me, and guys I know well, that are like, I don't like when you talk about DIY stuff on the podcast. So you really should hire a professional that knows what they're doing. Yes, 100%. The best, if we're looking at this a good, better, best kind of scenario, the best scenario is you hire a certified installer that's been through training and hopefully has a lot of years and a lot of projects under his belt. But the truth of the matter is that this industry was created on, pretty much founded on, and really has got its legs and continues to be very strong in the DIY market.
Yes.
We can't ignore that. So my goal, and this is the hopes of this podcast, it's a bigger picture thing. Big part of this podcast is I'm hoping that we create some information and a way for people to do better as a DIY customer. Like I want them to be proficient and know what to look out for and the pitfalls and stuff. So I would say the first thing is how are you saving money? You're saving money because, given whatever the project is, you could be saving, if not tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in installation, depending upon the size of the project. I would say on an average, a lot of our projects are somewhere in that, installation charge is probably 30 to 60,000 is probably fairly even. So let's just say it's $50,000, that you're putting in your pocket by doing the work yourself. That is a huge savings. And I've seen some really cool situations. You and I built our own house together, and that was kind of a cool feeling of like, we built this place, just the two of us, stacked it up, poured it, and all that.
Technically DIY, but I am a general contractor, and it wasn't my first one. But
it was kind of fun to have that experience. So now we tell people, we built this house block by block ourselves, just the two of us. We didn't have our crews out here or nothing. We just did it. With some help from some family came out. They definitely came out and camped out with us and had a good time. But and I've had the experiences with father-sons that built their cabins over the summer. They brought their camper up and put it on the job site, and that was kind of a bonding moment for father and son. And I think that's awesome. Like, they're, that son will remember that memory and tell his kids that, myself, me and your grandpa built this place. Like, so I think there's just a lot of really cool aspects to the DIY stuff. But obviously the big savings elephant in the room is the fact that you're not hiring a crew for $50,000 to come and install. You're going to do it yourself. I would say that in between the two, between the professional crew and you doing it yourself, I would say is kind of, again, backpropping myself again, but the consulting, I'm not the only guy out there. There's a lot of people, but bringing in someone who does know, maybe don't hire that full crew for 50, but maybe you talk to the owner of that crew or the owner of that company, and you see if he would be willing to come out a day or two during the process to make sure you're on the right track, make sure you're doing things correctly. In a lot of cases, instead of $50,000, you might be spending $5,000 for somebody to come out and supervise a little bit, but that is still saving you $45,000. So I think that's a really good way to do it, is to hire somebody to come out there and double check your work and make sure, especially prior to pour. I usually do a 3-step. So I usually go out first day, midway, and then on pour day. So that's kind of the way to do it. But that's obviously the blatant part. But you were getting into you read more about the Facebook thing, but like it really comes down to design. Like
a lot of it,
a lot of it is the design side, which is what you do, and this is what we do with the drafting company. So that's a huge part, because it starts the whole process on a track of if you're going to spend too much money or not.
Yeah, because like the conversation on the Facebook group today was a question of 3,600 square foot build. What should I be looking at as what is that going to cost me to do? And
this drives me crazy, by the way. I hate this. It's trigger warning for me on those Facebook groups when someone says that, and then guys start throwing out numbers. I'm like, you have no idea what that was. Well, just somebody saying that. How many corners? What are the window openings? What are you have no, where is it located? Like,
the height,
we have a job right now that I'm trying to get figured out. I'm trying to get installers for. And I'm making this up because I can't remember exactly, but it's less than 1,000 square feet. But it's on the side of a mountain, and you're going to have to dowel into granite rock and epoxy in your uprights and then cut the block to the shape of the granite rock to install the ICF on the side of this rock outcropping that is, because there's nowhere to make a build site. So I could just say, well, how much for 1,000 square foot? Well, am I doweling into granite on the side of a mountain. I mean, that's a little extreme, but
Yeah.
that's a that's a real thing that's happening in my inbox right now.
Yes. Yeah. So when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, so 3,600 square feet. Are we doing 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot? And there was some other information on there, but do we have a stem wall in addition to that? Are we doing slab on grade?
Do I need tall wall
Do I
system?
need tall wall system? What
my
are we-
regular system work?
Yeah. What are we doing? And then the great thing was, somebody came on there with a really good explanation and said, well, if we're looking at a square box, 3,600 square feet, 4 corners, square, maybe some of these numbers that some of these guys are throwing out are accurate. However, you could also have this building being, 12 feet wide and however many feet long. And that also is 3,600 square feet. But now that is, 2 or 3 times as many blocks. Maybe you've got, 48 corners on it, which adds alignment, complexity, cutting, waste, just different
slows
things.
down your install.
It slows down install. So there are so many variables to take into it. And when we're meeting with clients and helping them to draw their plans, one of the first questions we asked is, do you have a GC or is this a DIY? Because it's going to change the way that we're going to direct you with your finished product, with your plans.
Yeah, you may not want to build a 32-foot radius wall in your living room, if it's your first build versus a guy that's been doing it for 20 years. So
yeah,
know your design aspects of it is really going to start.
Know your limitations.
And I'm not saying. Well, I guess I am saying. I'm not saying you have to go really, really basic to keep the cost down, but you kind of do need to go more basic to keep the cost down. Like that's actually
if cost is the most contributing factor that you
Right.
have, then yes, you are going to have to do some things differently than if there is no budget. We tell our clients, whether they're our drafting clients, my build clients, any of the clients, you are limited in ICF by your imagination and your checkbook.
we can do anything.
We can do
for the right
anything.
price.
Exactly. So where are we at with budget? Are we starting with $1 sign or do we have $5 sign?
Yeah.
When you're looking at pricing. So getting real with the expectations with what you can do within your budget is the first step in being able to reduce costs. Because if you don't get real with yourself on what you can do, it doesn't matter if you're building a stick frame or you're building an ICF home. You have to look at
No,
what's
that's
my budget? What are my constraints? What are my must-haves? What can I do without? What can we do now that cannot be easily redone later? What
the exterior walls
Yes.
are easier to do now than later.
exactly?
That's what I tell people all the time. I go, here's the deal. You can, if you're on a budget, give yourself a solid, safe, energy efficient, soundproof home with the walls, put the money there. And then if you want to put granite countertops throughout the house, you could do that now. 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, you could put new floors. You can put all this other stuff that goes inside the walls can be added or changed at a later time. Those are where the
Let's
budget
focus
eaters
on the most
happen,
expensive.
right?
Yes, let's focus on the most expensive, the most important parts of your home. Let's focus on, your exterior walls, your roof, your windows.
Yep.
Those
That's what's going to dictate how efficient the house is and how
Yes.
much it operationally is going to cost you from month to month. So that's how you can save money, is make sure that one, if you're here even asking the question about ICF and saving money on that, then you're at least looking the right way, because your operational costs are going to be a third of anybody else's for the rest of your life, for the life of that house. So it's going to give you back consistently, but yeah, you don't expect to build big, huge, walls and curved walls and 32 corners on a house. Like, keep it simple and design it. And even more specifically, work with a drafting company, an architect or drafting company that understands the dimensions of the block you're using, which means you got to kind of pick that block early, because there are different size corners, different size straights, different sizes of things. So find out what block, get that decision made, early, and then give that information to your draftsman, to the architect, so that they can say, all right, we're going to move this window over 6 inches. Because if you look at every inch of that block is costing you money.
Yes.
Let's say every inch is $1, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's not because they're not that expensive, but it's close. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
For
You're not
easy
doing the
math,
Yes.
let's just say it's $1. Every inch you cut off, if you miss that opening and you got to cut 6 inches off and throw it in the dumpster, you just lost $6. So look at every little piece of the block as a dollar that you can save. If somebody who's designing it knows if we put these walls at this measurement, it's going to come out to an exact block measurement. If I put this window here, it's going to come out to an exact block measurement, or it's going to be something we can reuse in the wall later.
Yes.
Which is another way to save money. And that's, if you have questions on that, reach out to me. But literally one of the biggest cost savings people can do is don't throw block away. Anything over, depending upon what the size of webs you're using, is either 6 or 8 inches. Anything under 6 or 8 inches is going to go in the garbage. It is just what it is.
That's what it is, yeah.
But if you can keep your waste, everything over 6 or 8 inches, depending on the brand of block you're using, that should never be thrown away. That should go back in the wall. And that's where you're taking things, money out of the dumpster and putting it into the wall and making it make you make money. So do not, God, I drive on the job sites and I see piles of block that's been thrown away and it's all 2 foot long or 1 foot long. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, just put that in the wall. And there's ways to do it. Put it at the top of the wall. Don't put it at the bottom of the wall. Put it in the top of the wall. But
not the top course.
Not the top course, but like the second to top course and one below that. Sorry.
Oh.
Didn't have time to hit the mute. But that will save you so much money. Just utilizing the block and understanding that you don't throw away block because it's, under 2 feet long or whatever. So
the other thing is, what we ask when we start with a client, and it's not usually like, we don't have to have the information locked and, 100% on which block you're using, when we very first start. However, before we move from your final draft of the floor plan to starting elevations, we need to know what block it is, because the blocks can be different heights, they're different lengths. Just, we want to make sure that we're putting everything where it needs to be before we start adding in those elevations and finalizing that and doing the roof. And it just adds complexity there. But when you're looking at, the height that you want your house to be, let's say, you're working with 16-inch blocks and, 16-inch tall blocks versus a 12-inch tall block or a 2 foot or there's so many different variations. 18
inches or 16
so
inches, yeah.
We're going to try to make sure that you're using full block dimensions when we go height. If you're using a reversible block and, you've got where you're, it works out to where we can have a half block, then we'll do that as well. But we try to stay at the full block just because you're not wasting, 3 or 4 inches. You're not wasting time cutting down blocks and having to do those chalk lines and make sure everything is even. And there's just a lot of added work and time that goes into that.
Yeah. So I would say probably obviously design is a way for DIY people to save money is don't just go, please don't go buy an online plan from some company online. We sell plans online, so I guess I should say that. Not all companies, but we see this all the time where there's just like, whatever plansorama.com that sells plans from all over. They're usually a lot of them made overseas, or they've been made in different places where they have no idea what the building construction codes are or anything. Don't do that. Everyone thinks it's going to save you a bunch of money by buying a cheap plan. And it breaks our heart how many times we have had to tell people you just wasted $3,600 because you thought it was going to cost $8,000 or $10,000 to do that, to have someone draw a custom plan for you at an actual drafting company and work with an actual person and designer to design your home versus just getting it online. Because then what happens is you bring us that $3,600 plan, we end up having to redraw the thing. It costs you another $5,000 or $6,000 to have somebody redraw it so that your building inspectors will pass it. So don't make that mistake, please. That's something I've seen over the years for a long time. As long as the internet's been around, there's been people selling plans online that are cheap. Work with somebody that knows what they're doing work with somebody that you can call and talk to that person and make sure that you're designing it. It doesn't have to be somebody local, but just somebody that you can. I mean, we do most of ours over Zoom and all over the country. So, I mean, we're on
Meet.
Google Meet quite a bit. So, but don't save any money on the plans. That's really not where you need to save money, but have the plans designed to the actual measurements is going to save you money. The last thing I'll say about saving money that is a big stickler for me is, hold strong, especially as a DIYer. A lot of times you get bullied a little bit by your subs, and that can be, we see that a lot with the HVAC guys. The HVAC guy, like it or not, sorry guys, I'm outing you, but you're commissioned salespeople most of the time. So you've got guys selling you, they want to sell you more than you need. And the HVAC system that you need for an ICF house is nowhere near what you need for a stick frame house. And I'll tell you like this, if you have a fuel efficient car that gets 50 miles a gallon and you have a truck that gets 8 miles a gallon, they need to have different sized gas tanks in them. They don't need to have the same size gas tank. But for some reason, a lot of people will put that 8 mile a gallon gas tank in their 50 mile a gallon car. It's a waste. Don't do that. The other thing is you'll get electricians and plumbers and different people are like, I don't know what this is, so I'm going to charge you a premium. Not true. That's not accurate. I've spent many, many years in areas I don't even know making calls because I've had clients say, you don't know me. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and this is what they charge. I go, give me 15 minutes. I'll make 4 phone calls to 3 other, to some other electricians, and I'll find you a different electrician that understands how easy it is to work with ICF, and he'll actually give you a discount. So stand strong with your subs. Don't get charged a premium. Don't get oversold on your HVAC system.
It's where education comes in.
Yeah.
You've got to educate yourself, like a general contractor does. If you're going to save money as a DIY person, you have got to educate yourself.
You've got to put in the work. People, it's not easy. There's a reason why general contractors charge what general contractors charge, and that's why they get paid, is because we deal with headaches all the time. All the time. We're babysitters, everything we do. And, over and over again, we've had clients that have decided to go that route and take care of their own stuff or take over the job at a certain point. And then all of a sudden they're calling you going, well, this guy's not doing this and this guy's not. Well, yeah, no, that's your job to make sure they do that. So you need to be educated on everything, or unfortunately in today's world, I feel like more than before, people will take advantage of you a little bit. So if they feel like you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to probably take advantage of you at some point a little bit. I'd like to think that's not the way the world is, but it is, unfortunately. But
it happens.
It happens. So educate yourself, do as much educating as you can, work with even consultants on building side that can help you and come in and kind of double check your work or their work, and then make sure that you're getting what you need out of your subs and you're not paying an extra for it. So,
well, and another thing I would say is make sure that you're accounting for, like, doing it DIY is probably going to take you longer than if you hire a general contractor that has crews and runs it and does this for a living. So yes, you are saving money. You are trading your hours for that cost savings. So make sure, if you are borrowing money or whatever, you are accounting for that as well, because it does take you a little bit longer. Yeah.
You're not going to bill at the same rate as a contractor that has all the subs lined up and everything. So anyway, I think that pretty much gets into the deep dive deal there. But if anybody has any more questions on that, they can definitely reach out to us and let us know. We can get a little deeper into that if need be. Again, apologize for the big gap in episodes here. We will definitely be trying to get some more out here. Piling up a few next week, I'm hoping. We do have some great guests lined up that want to come on. Again, just schedule-wise, trying to get us all together at the same time in the same virtual room has been tricky. But we got some really good guests coming up. That couple repeat guests coming back, I think. But we definitely have some really good experience coming up. We're pushing on. So stay tuned. We will get some more out here. As always, get us on our socials.
Yeah, all of our
Please
socials.
follow us. Give us some subscribes and follows. Like we get a lot of downloads, and it really doesn't show in our followers or our subscribers. So please make sure to do that and share it with everybody. Like we really do want to get the word out to people. And though we don't get paid to do this, I still watch all the downloads and see where they come from and everything and check them out. And I'm a competitive person. I want to grow this thing. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys are just the best way you can pay us back and thank us for the podcast is to share it with your friends and put it on your socials and tag us in it and see if we can get some more people listening and interested in ICF, because really do think that this is the way to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways is letting them get the word out about insulated concrete forms and how to build. But
Yep.
anyways.
And aside from our socials, you can also get us info at buildwithicf.com.
Yeah.
That comes to both of us.
Mm-hmm. You may get either of us.
Yep.
It's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. You send in an email. One of us will get back to you, but no, everything. I appreciate that time of year. It's booming. Everybody get out there and start getting your stuff going and moving and ready, because it's happening fast right now and orders are going out the door. And so it means a little bit longer wait times on stuff. So you want to get your orders in now. If you're waiting, don't get your orders in. And then too, like I said, if you have any questions or anything that we can help you with, again, shoot us at, info at Build with ICF, or DM us at all of our at Build with ICFs. I'm going to keep plugging Reddit too, where I haven't really got on there and done anything yet, but I did get logged in and everything. So we do have a subreddit called Build with ICF. And then Jay is running a few different forums in there that are for ICF. So go on to Reddit if you want. There's some pretty good information. A lot of it's older right now, but we're trying to kind of revitalize it a little bit and get some more information in there. So what that could be, our listeners can help us with that. That'd be great. But other than that, I think that's about all we got.
I think so. Thank you again. And thank you for your patience. Yeah. Until we start getting some sponsors or something, we still have to work our day jobs in order to fund this. So
find us some big sponsors and we can put out episodes every week for you. And next episode 50.
Yeah.
The big 50.
Big 50.
Big 50.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good day.